one day this past week, and I can't remember who, I ain't seen that many people, but somebody asked me, we know there's a portal up there, do you think we can open it? Well, I don't know.
Isn't the portal by virtue of its name already open?
Well, see, there's the thing. When I thought about it, which I should have done before I just tossed out my answer of I don't know, is as Cherokees, what do we know about portals? Okay, we don't call them portals. The gates. And we have all these different stories about this, that, and the other. If any of you have read any of Mooney's stuff, you will have come across the story of Stonecoat. And it's from this guy that we get a whole bunch of songs and prayers and different rituals and ceremonies. But there's an interesting aspect to Stonecoat. He was a giant. And like most giants, he ate people. And Cherokees thought that was a very unfriendly thing to do. And we ended up killing him. And as he was dying is when he gave us these songs and prayers and stuff. And I think that's kind of interesting. But where he came from, he came out of one of the gates. And that was because and it never specifies who in the story, but some people did some prayers and rituals to open the gate. Not just that one where we live, but other ones around the country. I don't know about the world, but at least in North America. And out of these portals came these giants. But the first thing out was this guy G. Skili. Now that's translated as the devil, but that's not really what it means. What it means would be the evil. And his description, tall. Okay, Cherokees were not short people. So they're saying that this guy is tall. And he looks human-ish, whatever that means. Except he's got the head of a reptile. And they don't specifically say in the story what kind of reptile. I don't know if he had a head like a gator or a lizard or a snake or what. And he brought rituals.
Isn't that contradictory? It's the evil one, but he's bringing prayer
I
ceremonies and
know,
rituals?
yeah.
You gotta go with the story here. He brought all of this. And so the people started doing it. And when they did, these came through the gates. The giants came through the portals. And the giants were, they ate people, they were cannibals. And so this led to a really long war. And it took the Cherokees and all the other people a long time to figure out how to defeat them. And the ones that weren't killed were driven back into the portals. And they were closed. And all of these were burned, forgotten, put away, so that these couldn't be opened again. And they learned how to reverse these from this guy. That's what he told them on his way out. How to close those gates back.
So then he cannot be that evil if he gives them all this information.
He's an interesting character in the story. He eats people. However, he's also a healer. And several other good things, except he eats people. Now, I don't know exactly what that means in the story. He eats people. I don't know if that means cannibalism or
Or eat their
something
heavy
that-
energy? even?
yeah. I don't know enough on that to know exactly what they were saying there. What I do know is that the Navajos have stories that this is what the Anasazi did. And that's why you don't see the Anasazi anymore. Because they got in the war with the giants. And the cost of pushing them back into those portals was expensive. What few surviving Anasazi there were by the time the Navajo got here, the cliff dwellings and everything by then had been abandoned. And the few remaining people that were said that they had built the cliff dwellings to escape these guys. So, I don't know if we should be thinking about opening these portals. The way I learned it is we can go in there and we can come back out, but it's kind of like the door to your house. You close it behind you. Go in to that one of many other dimensions, do what you're going to do, learn what you, and come back and close the door behind you. I've always thought it might be kind of like a Ouija board. A Ouija board is nothing but this little thing on a piece of not even real wood, and you can play with it. And nothing happens. But lots of times something does happen, like some kind of evil comes through. So we generally don't play with this until we have done years of together
But
studying.
even if
and-
you do that, do you think that because I think, you're getting into multidimensionality when you start going through the portals and looking through portals and stuff like that you're not going to see the same place each time because
Hopefully not,
you're not
yeah.
going to always confront how do you say that? Giskili?
G.S.Skilly?
You're not always going to encounter that same being because I also think some of these tribes that disappeared went through the portals.
Mhm.
They've gone into a different
Buffalo,
dimension.
yeah.
So,
We have a issue with prayers, ceremonies, and rituals as well, because those would have been specifically said by him to
open
call
those
the
doors.
giants
Mhm.
to the portal.
Yeah.
So it would depend on what prayers and ceremonies and rituals you used to bring whatever you wanted to the portal. Because it has to come to some
Right.
place
Yeah, yeah.
on whatever side they are to
Yeah.
match your portal.
And this part here came
Because he ate people,
from that. Okay, so I don't know. I've thought about it, and I've asked my elders, well, what was that about? And they said, well, think about God. What is the first sacrifice that God in the Bible asked for?
Abraham's son.
Yeah,
Is
Abraham's son.
Abraham's son, yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever his name was.
Jacob?
I can't
Was it
believe-
Jacob?
Yeah, no,
Isaac.
no,
Isaac.
Jacob is later.
Isaac.
Isaac.
Yeah. So at the same, what's that mean? What's that mean? Because, this Christian God, was he really eating people?
Well, eating could have has a variety of
Exactly.
connotations.
Exactly. So, I say, I don't know exactly what that means. I just know that they ended up in this big war with whatever came through there and said, okay, we're not going to open those anymore. You can go in and out. Like the long hair story of Fish Woman. I mean, that's what her name means. She could go in and out of these dimensions. Swim back and forth. And when Twister comes out, what the hell happens? Remember that story of the long hair, the Twister clan? He wipes out the village. Kills a whole bunch of people, and he doesn't do it with any intent. He's just looking for her. He's just looking for her, and then he gets her pregnant. And we have the first people of the long hair clan. So, that's got to tell you, just like the Bible says, it calls them the Nephilim in the book of Genesis, saw the women of the earth that they were fair. So, these things, whatever they are, can interbreed with us. There is a tight connection. From what we understand of biology, man, if a horse and a burro get it together, the offspring's sterile. And these things, whatever they were, can breed with humans.
Do you think there was intention when they opened that portal, or no intention? I mean, because when I open sacred space, when I whistle into the bottle, when I shake the rattle, I'm opening the portal, and then I'm calling the ancestors for them to come in. So, I mean, do we know what the intention was when they first opened that up? Were they looking for protection? They were looking for something, otherwise why did they do it?
when I was asking my teachers about this, the thought is, and it's not in the story. It's not in any of the stories. You gotta kind of suss between the lines, and they're thinking that this was open and this was called, the intention being to how would that translate? Basically, to the people calling them to become the master race. I want this power.
Yeah, that's why the intention, there had to be some kind of
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
Because they called somebody. Yeah.
And at the time that this was happening, the difference between Cherokee culture and by the time stories is told, was that the priesthood was all male, and it's confined to families, passed down from father to son, father to son. Even though it didn't start that way, that's what it had gotten to by the time this happens. And so, G-skili, it's a really interesting Cherokee word because maybe I should change this. Because a person that's called a skilly, which means you're following this guy, it's when you're called a skilly, it doesn't mean there's no hope for you. It means you made a mistake here. That what you've done has caused harm to the people.
Because you did it without intention? You just random, it's a
Yeah.
random behavior?
Yeah, that's like, okay, like there's this one whole book of Cherokee, quote, love potions, and they work. They work, they really do. And this book got published. And the couple that published this book died these really horrible deaths. Their bodies, they basically mummified while still alive. The last part to die was like their hearts and their brains. They were like mummies. It was horrible, and the reason they said was because they had published these things that you don't use them because, okay, I'm in love with this woman or I'm in love with this man and I'm going to do this ritual and prayers and ceremony and make them want me. Okay, one, you're being selfish, and two, you are taking away their free will.
Sorcery.
Basically enslave them to your selfish desires, and so you've become unintentionally evil. Because if you love somebody, you don't want to hurt them. And so, oh, you find this thing, I wonder if this works, and so you're doing this, it's working, and it hasn't clicked in your head, oh my God, I have violated the rights of another human being. And so, how the hell did I get off on that? Oh yeah, the portals. So,
When, relatively speaking, do you suppose these things occurred?
if you look at the line of our history, and that this occurred before we became, quote, Cherokee.
There is
when we
a,
were still part of the Iroquois, still on the other side of the ocean, so 10,000, 12,000, who knows, long time ago.
there's a researcher who's actually forced the Smithsonian to disclose some of the information about the giants that they've hidden for many years.
Yeah,
And he's done a lot of research, and what it points to is that the giants were concentrated in Mexico, where they came through apparently, or landed. We don't know whether they came in ships or through a portal. But they were wiped out in Mexico almost, and so they scattered. And that's why the Indian people have so many stories of giants coming to their villages.
We have a lot of giant
What,
story in Germany.
Yeah?
Oh,
The red-headed giants, there's been a whole bunch
Oh,
of
there's
stuff
a
even on
whole
TV
bunch.
about
yeah, I
it.
mean, go back to the nursery rhymes. B505.
Yeah.
I smell the blood. Clearly they were everywhere. Okay, we know, I know, of the ones that my folks told me about, the gates. The one we dealt with happened in North Carolina,
Mm.
okay? It's a known fact.
it looks like there were mountain people, or because in Germany they were in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
That in the Four Corners area, and I forget the name of the canyon, there's a portal.
Mm.
There is, I think, right, yeah. Somewhere in between them two places.
Mm.
Somewhere between Flagstaff and Sedona is another one. And there's one to the south of there that no one remembers where it is. No one knows because it was hard to find, hard to get to. I'm not certain that ain't us.
Mm.
I'm not certain that ain't what we have found.
Well, you realize, of course, that the reptilians have control of all of the gates now. They're primarily closed.
Nobody has control.
Nobody
of
has,
those.
I don't know.
We can open them
Mm-hmm.
and close them. And there is no one that has complete control. Everyone can open and close them.
Which is the danger.
Yeah, that's the danger. But we know how to open them, we know how to close them. And back then and you're looking at really old stories, so trying to figure out what they're trying to tell us, like the 8 people. Just exactly what that means. You want to jump to they were cannibals. Well, what does that even mean? Because if they were, face it, if they were eating the people, pretty soon they're going to be out of food. You'll be out of food pretty quick.
You're only a cannibal if you're eating your own kind.
Exactly.
These guys were
but-
12 feet tall.
Yeah, but they're having children with our women. So therefore,
Is that in
we
the
are the
the
same.
stories, or is that supposition?
it's in the stories. That's in the
I've
stories.
heard that.
What's in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
And in
Yeah, but
fact,
that's not
it's-
necessarily the giants.
Yeah,
The Bible says there were giants.
yeah,
Well, I got
They
And
came
they-
and
they saw the
they
women
slept
of
with
the
the
earth.
women.
yeah,
In the Bible.
yeah. So, you know, in that extent, okay, that could be canon. We can have kids, we're the same kind. That's just basic, observable biology.
But you said he
Because-
was humanish with that reptile head, so that could be.
Well, that tells me, okay, he's got 2 arms and 2 legs.
But don't the Egyptians have paintings of that very thing? It's a human
hell, the
a body, but the head is,
Sumerians do too. I mean, and I think you can go to
and they were giants.
some of the old Hindu
In
beliefs and
France,
stuff.
and
You can see it all over the world. One of the things that supposedly you can see in this part of, well, not just in this part of the world, but all across North America, is this symbol. And I know I ain't gonna get this right.
Mm-hmm.
And boy. We're testing my artistic abilities, and we're all gonna be really sorry for this.
Don't worry, we have very low expectations.
Anyway, this is supposed to be a symbol of one of these gates with the reptile coming through.
Mm.
Even though that doesn't look like, well, maybe I'm eating too fat. Guess it don't matter much, my drawing sucks.
That's a reptile, we got it.
Yeah. And I've seen this one.
Mm.
Have you gone up into the canyon with us to where those rocks that have fallen on? Need a 4-wheel drive to get in there, and I don't think I've taken you up there.
No,
Anyway, there's these big rocks, and from my understanding, it was a cave
Mm.
at one time, and then the people that owned the ranch first, I forget their name, dynamited it so they could put some of those rock art in their house
oh
that they
God.
were having built. But the rest of the walls are still there. They crumbled down. And this symbol is on there.
Mm.
And so, and supposedly this symbol is a symbol saying there's one of these nearby. One of these portals, one of these gates nearby. So,
What are you proposing? That we should go and play with the gate?
No.
no, I'm not proposing. But I
I'm not.
propose, yeah, we can go in and out. We just gotta remember to close the door behind us.
Mm.
Because clearly these giants existed. For as much as there are scientists trying to tell us they didn't, the physical evidence exists.
The evidence is
That-
incontrovertible at this point.
Yeah, and they're fossils now. Or on their way to being fossils. So it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago, but it's still in the oral memories of everybody across the world. I mean, the Chinese have oral stories of these giants. And I found our story of Stonecoat.
Mm.
Because our story, he's the last one. At least in our area. And they have lookouts looking for him, like, oh shit, we saw Stonecoat, and he smelled us, and he's coming this way. And, you know, this is 3 days ahead of time. They know this. And the way they defeated him is an intriguing story. they got 4 women, 4 young women in different stages of their, polite word,
Womanhood.
menses. And the first woman he encounters, the fact that she has started her moon weakens him, takes some of his strength away. The second woman he encounters, and they're just along the road, they don't do anything, they're just there. And the second one weakens him even more. The third one is, and it's been so long I don't really remember how long these things go, but she knocks him to his knees. And the fourth one puts him down. And that's when the people come, tie him up, and drag him off, and stake him to the ground. He's not on a stake, he's staked to the ground. 'Cause
Like
he's
Gulliver?
So big.
Yeah, there we go.
And they pile wood around him and set him on fire. And as he's dying, he gives them prayers, ceremonies, and rituals on how to close these gates. Isn't that an interesting story? If he was a bad guy,
He wouldn't have cared.
yeah,
He must have seen the light. He's dying, so he said, okay, I'm gonna be good for your people.
is it that the bad guy was unintentionally bad? I mean, what does G. Skilly do that's quote so bad?
He eats the
He gets his family from wherever they were in there to here. It just doesn't go well. When he gets them here, so yeah,
It's like bringing somebody from another country into this country. It's just
and
another universe.
Yeah.
here.
and it doesn't go well. But at the same time, going in and out of there is encouraged, but not as a group. Well, let me take that back. Not as a group, not as a tribe. Must not be a good idea. I don't know. So anyhow, that was my whole thing on whether or not we want to open that portal. Think about it.